Man United have beaten Barcelona in the Europa League. They're through to the next round. Barcelona are gone. And in this game, we saw Erik Ten Hag make really important tactical changes at halftime that swung the game in their favour. That's basically how they've got through. So let's look at what those changes were. And we'll start by looking at how the teams lined up. Now, first of all, we've seen the first leg. It was very exciting. This game was very exciting too. In the first half, a little bit strange. A few things that Ten Hag did in particular that didn't really seem to make sense. Like Jadon Sancho playing as a 10 or as are 2 8s. Because what they did in this game, rather than play the traditional 4-2-3-1, they tend to have one player on either side. When it's Eriksen, he plays on the left. Fred was kind of right side, Sancho was sort of left side. And so what you had out of possession was a 4-1-4-1. And when they pressed, you'd have Sancho was joining up top, level with where Rashford was. So there'd be like one line here, and then you have Fred would be slightly next to it in this sort of second line here. With Fernandes playing as a right winger, very strange. But Ten Hag's done a lot of positional changes recently. The reason for Fernandes being wide is because here he can swing in really great crosses from wide areas. I'll do it better with an arrow, because he's got a really good right foot. So you can get great delivery into the box for a player like Weghorst. Makes total sense. Beckham and Van Persie, that sort of thing now. That's what you've got if you play that sort of, you play Fernandes in that sort of position. Then you have Fred buzzing around, providing all the energy, winning the ball back in midfield. He was brilliant in this game. Casemiro anchors everything. He is the pivot player around whom the rest of the team build around. All the build-up goes through Casemiro because he's one of the only players that Man United have who always knows where the next pass is, so he can always make sure the play goes forward. As Man United and in Barcelona, very similar to what we might have thought they would be. They were missing Pedri and Xavi, a huge miss, but what they tend to do is it looks like a 4-3-3, also looks like a 4-4-2 and a 3-4-3. It changes shape depending on where they are. What you've got is Lewandowski always up there. Rafinha comes off the right to attack through the central, through half spaces basically. Then what you have is Sergio Roberto, who sort of plays a part of a midfield, because De Jong and then Kessié and Busquets form a box midfield. You might have seen John's video last week on this as well, it's really good. And then you've got Balde is essentially a winger. So he's always making this run up here. So what you get is your front five of these guys. You see them all here? That's where they are. So you get this front five by Balde, who's essentially a winger. And then the defenders pull across a little bit to form a back three. And then you've got your 3-2-2-3, basically, is what you get with this shape. Now, this is really relevant because Balde's positioning is something that Ten Hag focused on in the second half. So in the first half, what we had was Weghorst up front as the main forward. Next to him, you had Sancho, who's playing in a sort of David Silva role. You know, you might have Sancho as a winger or an inside forward, something like that, right out wide here. But he's not really got the pace to go past people, really. He's been found out a little bit this season with doing those sorts of things. So suddenly you take a player who's very good at dribbling, very good in tight spaces, can turn really quickly and just flick a pass through. Say Drubbett runs towards some bodies, you can just flick something through and create. So another reason you've got Sancho in a position you might not expect him to be in. Now, before the game, Ten Hag was speaking to BT Sport pundits and they talked about rotations and how important it was to have rotations. But what you think you might have done was had like Rashford rotating with Sancho or something like that, or Rashford rotating with Weghorst who drop into the 10 slot like he has been in recent games. But the only real rotation that I noticed throughout was that Fernandes was helping cover for Wan-Bissaka, who was getting forward. So you got a player like Wan-Bissaka who's not great in the final third, in these sorts of areas with Fernandes dropping deep to sort of deal with it. And that is relevant because the two things we know, Balde's going to get forward always, Fernandes was then rotating with Wan-Bissaka, and Fernandes was the one who was caught with Balde got in here to give away the penalty that I think was a very harsh penalty. So that's the first half. That goal changes the first half. All the momentum drops out, and then United forget the system. They just don't play with any energy, aggression, intensity, and that's kind of why it slows down and Barca have a controlled lead. So then comes half-time, and this is where the changes come that swing the game. Now, we know it wasn't working. Far too slow and passive, not able to get the ball through to the forward players. Rashford really not even in the game whatsoever. So first of all, Weghorst comes off. Not needed. They're not really playing to his strengths. He's not able to get in the game and help link anything. So they're not really getting the ball wide to use his head either. So no use. So Rashford goes up top. That's good. We know that Barcelona want to play a high line. Xavi said so, because if you play a high line, you can squeeze Man United up. That's what they want to do to be able to control the pitch. The reason they're so good at defending Barcelona, they've got the best record in the Liga by miles, is that they control the game and keep the ball. That's how they do it. They squeeze up, they push up. That's what they want to do. Rashford makes that dangerous because if Rashford can make runs in behind, you're going to get some joy from it. Then of course we know Balde's going to push up, which means that there's going to be space in behind here. So what you want to do is get someone fast in there in that position. So Fernandes goes to the middle, that makes sense. Sancho goes wide where he tends to have played. That's good. He can then play on the outside or go into the half spaces if Shaw overlaps. And then what you've got on the right hand side is Antony, who changes the game, brings a real energy and aggression to the pitch. That's what he does straight away. And Man United score almost immediately, and it's all about getting the ball forward early. They get the ball forward early, then you've got runners up front, and the ball ends up with Fred making the run forward and finishing, what was the line up there? Fred ends up finishing a really great shot off his shin. It goes in. That's what you need to happen. That's where he scored the goal. It's all about the change in attitude, not just the system, it's change in attitude, energy, intensity. That's what you get. And then that goal lights up Old Trafford and it goes all out, and that's what swings the game. So the changes, absolutely what everyone thought they should probably do in the first place, so the fans really like that. And then what you get suddenly is running, energy, and it's a different team altogether. And then the things we know tactically that's going to happen, Balde going up, really relevant, because the space is here for Anthony to have fun in. And the thing that Man United started doing in the second half was stopping playing slow passes. So in the first half, lots of slow passes, wasn't really working. Second half, a real key thing they were doing is Wan-Bissaka was pulling wide, trying to take Balde with him. So all these tactical bits and pieces are what results in the second goal that Man United score. So we know how the shapes go, we know where the different dangers are. We also know that Barcelona are trying to stop the ball getting into Casemiro. They're trying to stop the ball getting in here because he's a pivot player, and it affects the way Man United can build up. They can't build through this guy here. Fred's not dropping in. They've got loads of players in the middle trying to block them. So the only things they've got, the only options they've got are either going wide to a fullback, or the fullback's actually marked as well, but their actual real only option is to go long. That's what they've got to do. Now, this is relevant because this is how they score the goal. But what they're doing for the build-up in the second goal, is they're doing the thing when they're building up with the defenders, they're trying to play it up, Barcelona blocking the passes, trying to make them open, so as they get even further back, there's just a bit more space worthy to win the ball back so they could then attack. But what happens is Martinez ends up with the ball on his own, very much at the back, like this, and Shaw spots the opportunity to dart and a run up here. So he gets on his bike and absolutely flies up. As he flies up, you've got Martinez in control of the ball up here. They're not putting pressure on him, they're stopping the ball go into Casemiro. That's what they're trying to do, stop this, because it might lead to something. Martinez pings it, one of these long balls that they started doing. The ball goes into Shaw, who's now on the overlap here. That means suddenly you've got Rashford, Fernandes, you've got Sancho, and you've got Anthony. So as the ball then comes in, I think it goes to someone like Fernandes as a shot, someone else has a shot, and Anthony ends up at the back post to be able to score that volley that goes in. And all of this is a direct result of changes in attitude and intensity helped by the crowd, but born of the tactical changes that Ten Hag made, recognizing all the things that have happened. Like Xavi changed things to stop it. He took off Roberto and put on, Torres to try and stop the flow and make sure that Balde could stay back because they'd recognized it. But it was too late in the end. Man United had the game locked down. They won it. Deserved winners over 2 legs. Lovely stuff. Ten Hag's a really good guy. And then also one more thing you saw was McTominay came on as a striker. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that. And for more, subscribe to the channel.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.